Every damn day.
Hey everyone, it's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 60 of Every Damn Day. And today we've got our new friend Kristine on, and we're going to be talking about her new book, Fuck It, I'm 50, and how we survive the unsurvivable. I love that phrase. So how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah?
I've watched and listened to so many of these, and so to finally actually be here
Well,
is exciting for me.
we're really happy to have you. You're talking about one of the subjects that we talked about all last season, and that is hope.
Yes.
And I love that word and love that concept, so can't wait to dig into it. So let's start out, though, with tell us about you a little bit. So give us some background.
Well, I'm a retired teacher. I taught 30 years, all in Mason Public Schools, 9 at elementary, and then I transferred to the middle school. I was not being punished. My mother thought I was being punished, but I actually wanted to go teach middle schoolers, and they did not disappoint. Every day was an adventure. As much as I love teaching, and I did love teaching, I cartwheeled out on my last day because I was excited to have that chapter of my life and to be able to move into something different. And I still have my connection with students and writing and different things that I do. So now I get to be, I say full-time writer, but there's so many things that I do. Writing is a big part of a lot of the things that I do, but I have many rescue animals at my house. All of our animals are rescues. I horseback ride, and so I'm in and involved in a number of different writing groups here and in different areas of the state. And
so I want to go back to what your mother said. You were being punished.
Yeah.
Was she a teacher as well?
No. I was actually the first kid in our family who went to college and did that. My dad was a child of 15 kids in his family. My grandpa was a coal miner, and my mom worked, right out of high school. They got married when my mom was 19. So it was always told to me, you will go to college. We don't care what you do. But yeah, when I told her I was transferring to the middle school, she said, I told you better be careful what you say. And I said, well, I said I want to move to the middle school. And she said, we know there's middle schoolers there. I'm like, yeah. So, but I loved it. Every day was something new. Even when I was teaching, when I finally was able to have just the one prep of 8th grade language arts, every hour was different because just the students make up a different energy and vibe.
And especially when you're being creative like that, when it's not just 2 + 2 = 4, and it's a little more rigid.
The writing and reading is just its own world. And I always told my students, I tell everybody, our words have the power to change the world. And I truly believe that. It wasn't just a soundbite that I used to try and trick them into reading or writing. But I really feel that in my heart. In fact, I have it painted on my staircase going up into my new brick house studios.
Okay.
Our words have the power to change the world.
I know that a lot of people say, words matter.
Yes,
That's
they do.
a phrase, but words do matter.
They do. Yeah. Written, spoken, they matter.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Stigma, for example, like using the word addict versus substance use disorder can really make a difference.
Makes a difference. Yes.
So, tell us about, do you want to start with your new book, or you want to start with your whole collection?
I would love to start with my new book. I love my new book. Fucking I'm 50 is the longest project I've ever worked on. It took me 6 years to write this. I started it when I was 50, and I'm 56 now. I'm going to be 57 this year. So finally figured out after I wrote 2 full versions of it that there was actually 3 main characters. So there's 3 very different women, Becca, Ginny, and Cassie, and they each have their own stories, but their stories merge in and out of each other. And there's a lot of twists and turns in it. And I just love these women. They absolutely kick ass. They are fabulous.
So what's it? It's following three women and their stories.
Yes.
Is there a theme there?
The theme is, it's not the number, it's the attitude. Because really, it doesn't matter if you're 50 or 30 or 70. It's really about your attitude and how you go at things. So each of these women are faced with challenges from their past, and as they move ahead, and as they each are coming up into 50, they have to figure out, okay, how do I want to do this? Where do I want my path to go? And it starts, the opening chapter is Becca is at the local hangout bowling alley bar with her boyfriend, who's not quality, while he gets wasted at her 50th. And that's where she meets Ginny, who's a bartender there. And it just goes from there. It's about taking full control of your life and facing the demons from the past, not being afraid to do that.
Yeah. Was this, when you turned 50, was that a huge number to you?
I've never really been hung up on the numbers. I mean, there's so many people I know, they're like, oh, don't ask somebody how old they are. And I've never cared about that. It's just, there seems to be this big, I know so many people that are like, oh, I'm going to be 50. And I'm like, look, what's the alternative? The alternative is you don't hit that next number. I'm not ready for that yet. So bring it.
Yeah, but then AARP sends you 100 pieces of mail.
They started sending stuff when I was, in my 40s. So
did they?
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, the women in this book, when I write my stories, it's all about the characters. The characters kind of come into my head and knock around until I finally agree to write their stories. And I know that sounds a little kooky, but that's how it works for me.
Yeah.
And so these women are still with me when I do my other writing groups and things. They pop up in my stories and different things as well.
So what are they surviving that's unsurvivable?
Well, they've each had losses of their own. There is some past physical, sexual assault trauma for some of them, just neglectful, abusive relationships. There's also just the loss of parents and important people in their lives that, sometimes you have a loss and it doesn't really hit you until later, and then it hits you. And so there's also the challenge for them of, okay, so how do I move forward from this? Do I just sit back and say, well, this is all I have? Or fuck it, I'm 50, if not now, when?
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. What's the hope that they all have?
The hope is, this book is really about the power of friendship and leaning into people who have your back and who support you, and building up trust so that you can do that with people, because it's hard to trust people sometimes, especially if you've been burned in the past. And so there's that powerful connection between women and friendship and, the Me Too movement. And just, there's so much in this book that I love this book.
Yeah.
I've known it's been coming for so many years, and I worked so hard on it. That
it's got a swear word in the title, and it's fun
I know,
to say.
and that's another thing. My mom will never watch this interview probably, but she does not appreciate this title. I was driving in my car, and she was talking to her one day, and I was like, yeah, I finally got this done. And, it's going to be, she's like, oh, she goes, what's the title again? And I was like, well, and I kind of paused, right? Because, it's my mom. And so I said, well, actually, I said, but the title is Fuck It, I'm 50. And there was a pause, and she said, that is not the title of your book. And I said, well, actually, it is the title of my book, Mom. And she said, well, I can't imagine that sitting on my coffee table. And I said, well, then I guess don't buy one. But I know a whole bunch of people that want it just because of the title. So, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun promoting this. And I'm looking forward. We have the big book launch next Wednesday.
Yeah, let's hear some details about that real quick.
So you had Megan on here in February, and Megan is the director of the Women's History Museum there on Allegan. And so next Wednesday, March 9th, come on down. I'll have copies of Fuck It, I'm 50 as well as my other books. We're going to have other local, we have Isabella Mansfield is going to be reading some of her poetry. Native Child Brown is going to be there doing some of her spoken word. And then Mardo Maddock, who is this just incredibly talented musician, singer. I saw him at one of the Artist Umbrella open mics, just this last one they had, and I said, I have to have you there. So it's just going to be a big party. It's going to be a big celebration. And so come on down, get your copy, get a copy for your mom and your grandma. I had a woman at the Women's Expo stop. She was 94 years old. And she said, oh, I have to have that book. And I was like, you got it.
So you've, it's at the Her Story. It's 3 women.
Yes.
You've just listed out your mom or your grandma or whatever. But I imagine there's some good lessons in there for open-minded men.
Oh,
as
absolutely.
well, right?
In fact, so I'm very involved with Reality's Chance Rescued on a Pleasant Lake, because that's the group that saved my Mustang that I have, Cinderella. And so I've become involved with them. And I was just out there last week, and the owner's husband was there, and he enjoys my personality. And I had told him, I said, you need to read this book. He goes, well, yeah, but there's three women. And I said, no, there's good lessons for men. I said, if you want to understand women a little bit more than you do, read this book, because it really does show how our minds work.
Most of everything I know about water has to do with Pleasant Lake.
Really?
My grandmother owned a house on there for years.
Oh, nice.
And I grew up on that lake. So.
Yeah, the Reality's Chance is just a brilliant place. I didn't know anybody out there until this past summer. And they invited me to come out and sell my books at one of their events, and got to know the owner. And so then she approached me a little while after that. She was like, so I've read your stuff and I like your voice. How would you like to write a book for us about Thor? So they have a pair of Frisians out there, like imagine Middle Ages, the big black war horses, and Thor is everybody's favorite. And so I ended up doing a project for them, and wrote this little booklet, Thor the Mighty Frisian, which it's kind of hard to see here, but it has the artwork is actually the black horse standing like this in the superhero pose with his red cape, and a 7th grade student did the artwork for this cover. So everything I make from this book goes back to the rescue, which is just very heartwarming for me to be able to give back, because I'm all about giving back and helping people.
Let's check out another book.
Well, I'll go back to the first novel that I actually took through the publishing is Flowers for Rodney. And so I've always been a writer. I've always written as long as I can remember, but I got real serious about my writing in 2006. I went through the Red Cedar Writing Project over at MSU. And so I decided, I wonder if I could write a novel length. And so I started in 2008 with Nanowrimo. It's a online group. They challenge you in November to write 50,000 words or more. And I did it in 2008, and I was like, woohoo, but nobody's read that. That's in a drawer somewhere. But in 2009, I had Rodney. I could see this kid. I was teaching 8th grade, and that whole disconnect between adults and their teens is a very real thing. So I decided I needed to tell Rodney's story of what path was he going to choose for himself. And he's gotten himself into trouble. And so it's told from his perspective and also from his mom's. And so this was my life dream of having a book on the shelves with my name on it as the author. And this gets used in a lot of high school classes, actually, because Rodney deals with the loss of not having his dad in his life. His mother, Susan, kind of took her kids when they were young and ran from a very abusive relationship. So there's a lot of intense things in it, but it's a very hopeful story. So
are you self-published? Do you have a publisher? Do you?
Flowers for Rodney, I published through, it used to be Create Space, which is now KDP Publishing.
Okay.
So that's how this one eventually was published. I wrote it in 2009. It wasn't published until 2014.
Okay.
Writing is hard. So, but then
I've got at least 15 books.
Yeah.
I started one earlier this week.
You just have to finish it.
Yeah.
But They Said She Was Crazy was my second book that was published. And this was actually picked up originally by a publishing company. But now I have it through just through independent indie publishing. But this book, They Said She Was Crazy, it's the story of Mara, who comes home and finds that her son Zane has died by suicide. And it is a fiction book, but I was able to write a lot of my connections with my son after I lost my son in 2010. I have these beautiful connections with him. And so Mara, after Zane is gone, is trying to survive the unsurvivable. How do you survive the loss of a child? And but she has connections with him, like she can see him and sometimes, and he talks to her, and so she's not quite sure she wants to let go of that, even though her friends and parents are a little worried that perhaps she's off a rocker. But again, very intense subject matter. It's not about the suicide, it's about the aftermath. And this is the book that it's so incredible to me, the number of people who have shared their stories and told me that there was one boy in particular whose teacher was using this book, and he came up to her after school one day and he told her, he said, there's a lot of books about suicide, but there aren't very many about what happens after. And he told her, I can't do this to my mom now. He had planned on it, but after he read this, and it just gives me goosebumps when I think about it. And that's just one story in 100 that I've heard. But this is now one of my big pushes is for me to go. I go into schools. I've spoken to mental health awareness groups, suicide prevention groups. I've done fundraisers for Ellie's Place and different places because we have to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And there's so many adults that are, oh, we can't talk about that. Oh, let's not talk. We don't want to talk, birth control to kids because then they're going to go out and have sex. They're already having sex. We don't want to talk about suicide because then it's going to make, no, it gives them a path to, you've got to get that stuff out. And if they don't have a safe place to talk about it, they're gonna react one way or another. There's better ways than.
Well, that knowledge and that information is the real power.
Yes.
Of knowing, of being in put through a situation or presented with a situation that isn't real life. I mean, it can be, but not for that reader, and being able to help with the empathy, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so many people said to me when I was, teaching, oh, kids now these days, they think they have problems. They don't know what real problems are. And I always countered with, yes, they do. The students that came to me, like that's 10 books, the things that we learn about our students and the things they carry with them into the classroom, and how some of them, it made me so proud of them that some of them even made it to school, let alone cared at all about what was happening there, because they had so much else going on. They have to have a safe place and a safe conversation. And these two books, I absolutely love taking them into schools and talking to students and their parents, if the parents will be open to have that conversation. So you recommended that I get the They Said She Was Crazy, so I am going to do that. It's really powerful in the whole grief process. And I know that you're familiar with that. So
We're in the same club.
yes, it is a horrible club to be in. But if I have to be in it, the way that I dealt with it from the very day that I lost my son, is that I made sure my family and my support knew whatever I need to do to get through this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I have to. Or the big thing that my counselor, that one of the counselors that I work with, they had the rule, don't should on yourself. I should have done this. I should have done that. It leads down those rabbit holes that don't help anything, but it's such an easy spiral to get caught up in. And by writing this, it was very cathartic for me, because I only recently started writing nonfiction pieces about my son and, what happened with him. This book is still, for people that are close, that know me, this was hard for a lot of people because they know the real story. But it was very helpful for me to write it. Very helpful for me to write it.
Maybe I should write a book then.
Absolutely.
You never know when, well, you're not healed. You don't really heal.
No,
right?
It changes. People always say, well, it eventually it gets better. And I always say it doesn't get better, it gets different. The sharp, pointy moments are less often. They aren't every moment, every breath that you take, but they're still there. They're still in there. Just recently, I lost my son in 2010, and then just 2 years ago in February, I lost my brother also to suicide. And and I was already hanging by my fingernails because 2020 was going to be the 10-year marker that my son had been gone. So I could already feel myself starting to spin out towards the end of 2019. And then early 2020, my brother died and left behind his amazing wife and my three nephews. It set it all in the blender again. And so that was tough. But just a couple of weeks ago, it was like coming up on 2 years, and I'm like, I got this. And I got through that day, but I got through it because I was like, for now, we'll just let that go over there. And I just kind of skipped through life. And then the week after, it was like, there it is. Yeah. But I know to give myself permission for those days. I mean, I do what I need to do, whether it's go for a walk or, dance around the house with Pink playing as loud as I can get my speakers to go, or writing. I write through a lot. The writing really helps me. I write a lot about what happens inside here to help other people. I post things on my blog. So KristineEbrickey.blogspot.com. I'm currently writing a series because my friends basically told me I had to, I'm calling it the emotional blog series. So I did a post about guilt because I got a little frustrated with so many people telling me they had to do something because they felt guilty if they didn't. And the people they had to do these things for were really not worthy of their kindness. Mm. So I wrote a really powerful post about guilt. And then I did one on shame. And I've been told the next one, I need to do anger. So I'm like, oh, well, that'll be good. So, but I also am planning on doing one on joy. Actually, that's what I started working on this morning, because I just recently, this past week, I had vivid dreams Sunday night about my son. And I haven't had a dream about him in a long time. And at this point, it kind of hits me where I wake up, and it took me a couple of minutes. And then I was like, oh, hi, Robbie. Yeah, that was great. Like, we spent that whole time together in the dream. And it's been like that each night, where I've had really powerful dreams about my son one night. And my brother was in another dream. And then a mentor that I lost a number of years ago who died by suicide as well. And I was the only one who could see him. Like I was talking to him and people were looking at me and I'm like, oh, you're not really here. Okay, so we're going to act like we're, but I was talking to him because it was my chance to talk to him. So I don't know if you have dreams about.
I do.
Yeah.
And they're gems. And it is, I don't know, I guess, on the days that you're supposed to be sad and you're supposed to be doing these things and you're supposed to act these certain ways, I kind of look at those days as for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And my days are on my own terms because I found myself even, the day that it happened, trying to take care of everybody else. So it's okay. Don't tell me you're sorry.
Yes.
You didn't do this,
Mhm.
and then, I was the one consoling everybody.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because the day that my son died, I had been out riding that morning I had a beautiful morning with my son. And I had gone riding with a friend of mine, and my son was supposed to meet us that afternoon to at the donkey rescue because we had decided my son had actually said, let's get a donkey to keep our horse company. And I was like, great. And he wasn't answering his phone. And so I went home and found him. And as you can imagine, it was fairly traumatic. And once things started rolling, I was basically out of my front driveway on my knees, just keening. I just remember the screaming. And there was a young deputy standing there. And I remember thinking, oh, you poor guy. Like, oh, I'm sorry you have to be here. But he commented later to a friend of mine how shocking it was to him that as soon as people showed up, when my son's dad got there, I instantly got up to help him. And he commented to her later, he said, even as lost as she was, she did that. And that's what people tell me happened at the visitation as well. Like I would just be lost, but there were so many students and things because my son went to Mason where I worked as well. And it's just that kicks in, that need to take care of other people.
So last year, we had a bunch of questions that were kind of formatted and all of that. And I quit doing it in this season, but I want to go back to one.
Okay.
What gives you hope?
Oh, it's every day things give me hope. The dreams that I have, right? Those make me hopeful. I have hawks. I have a connection with hawks with my son. And so like a hawk will show up, like one swooped right down in front of my kitchen window the other day, sat in the snowball bush right outside my kitchen window and just hung out with me for a bit. I mean, days like today where it's sunny and you can feel spring coming, spending time with my horse, with friends, like there's so many things that can bring you hope. You have to be open to them, but I think you have to be open to everything. I don't run from my grief. I don't hide from it. And I know a lot of people that do. And whatever they have to do to manage their grief, that's up to them. But for me, I roll with the punches, so to speak. And I write and I lose myself in other people's writing. There's so many things to be hopeful for. I mean, sometimes it's just finding a sharp pencil, like, yay!
That gratitude for the
simple things. Yes,
powerful, super powerful. As our club gets bigger, the club we don't want to be in.
Yes.
I mean, with the isolation that COVID brought, we've seen increases
that was tough.
in mental health or unhealthy.
Yes, I know. I know.
And we've seen increases in overdose deaths, and we've seen increases in gun violence deaths.
Yes.
And it seems like, it's backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be us that go first, not our young people. And as this club is getting bigger, what's something that not the people that are in the club, but the community maybe could do something to help the club a little bit better.
Well, I know in Mason, my community, what I would love to see are more events where people can get together and just have an open forum, open it up in our schools where they bring people in who've been there, done that, and give students a place to, whether it's paint or write or just talk. Rita Vogel, who's my manager, she is in charge of Creative Collective, and she had an event last May really focusing on mental health awareness, and that You Are Not Alone was the name of the event, and it was beautiful, and there were so many people there. There was a table of women sitting in the front who, as I was reading and sharing, tears were just streaming. And I don't know who they were, but they needed that. They needed that connection. Our communities need to have more open, more inclusive, less judging,
Connection's the opposite of everything
absolutely
bad that can happen.
It's really what saves me every day is my support system that I have, and being able to fall down and know that you're not going to stay down. That's one thing that I really try and get across to, especially young adults. Yes, this moment feels like it's never going to stop hurting, but it will. If you just pause, take a breath, it will ease. It will ease. Yeah.
All right, one more thing. Are you broken?
I like to compare myself to a vase that was smashed into tiny pieces and then got glued back together, and with beautiful glue, gold, silver, whatever, and it's
Like the Japanese
stronger.
do, I think.
The Japanese do that. Yep, I read that somewhere, and I was like, that's it. That's what, especially losing a child. It's you're not supposed to say goodbye to your kids. And so I would say, yeah, I was broken, but I'm stronger now because of it. Helping other people makes me stronger.
And I would give the same answer. We're not broken.
Nope.
We're not broken because this happened to us. And I think people feel, oh, that's what happened to him. That's why he's so weird or whatever. I've been weird for a long time.
Well, that's where the title, they said she was crazy, came from, because I know there was a lot of people like, oh. And I'm like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being a little crazy. I taught middle school, for crying out loud. So you have to be a little crazy.
So hope comes from this desperation, right? If you didn't have this no hope, you wouldn't need this hope, right?
Yes.
And the Russians say hope is the last to die. Not that I support you right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Putin.
Whatever your name is.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing us a path to hope and talking about your story.
Oh,
and
thank you for having me. This is
I won't
so
apologize for all of the tragedy, because I know that tragedy is an engine for you.
yes.
So I'm grateful
Yeah.
that you have that engine, and I wish it would be a different path. maybe.
Yes. But here we are.
Yes, we are.
So thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I'll see you on Wednesday, March 9th, where you can get your copy of Fuck It, I'm 50 and hear me read from it and listen to some other amazing, talented local artists.
And buy a signed copy.
Buy a signed copy of all four of my books. Support the rescue.
All right, y'all. That's another Every Damn Day. We love you very much, and we'll see you again tomorrow.